Oh, yeah.
Just say that. I like it.
I have my dad, and but they are all still alive.
There you go. Oh, heck yeah.
If they can get on with it, so that's what I did with my dad. But we don't have. I would say, unless they, yeah.
Coffee, water.
Yes.
I had them this year and I had one on my but we had
I wish my children would have behaved like you guys have. Right in your seat. I'm Tommy Routside. I'm one of the funeral directors here on staff. Thank you very much for being here for Bob's services. I know we're all at a loss. You know, we were at a bar just a couple of weeks ago and didn't expect to be here. So, what a great guy. So I'm glad you're here. But would you reach in your pockets and purses first? Pull out your cell phones, make sure they're turned off or on mute or stunned or whatever, you put them on to shut them up as the night hour. We have Brian Bennett with us today. He's our funeral celebrant on staff here. And he's going to say a few words. Marty's going to say a few words. And who else is?
Barry.
Okay. All right, good. Have you met Brian?
Yes.
Good. All right. So just remember that this is going to be a short service, and then we're going to go over to the post. I'm sure you all know where that is, and have the celebration over there. And you probably want to get a cocktail because George is doing the prayer. If you know George, it'll be a half an hour. Anyway, so thank you all for being there. No further ado, Brian, why don't you go ahead and start.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. As TR said, thank you all for being here. I can't imagine what a support this is for Susan and the family. And just want to start by saying just how absolutely heartbroken I am for all of you. You know, we unfortunately do this a lot, but this one hits really, really hard. And I had the privilege of talking to Susan and Charlie, and I said, you know, I just help me understand him more. And I want to know as much of his story as I possibly can. And they just did a phenomenal job of being able to tell me about Bob and his life. And as TR said, I'm a funeral celebrant. I have a normal day job like most of you. I'm a leadership consultant by day, but I do this because I watched my dad lose my mom here a little while back. And I got a front row seat for understanding just how impossibly hard a time like this is. And you guys being here today to show support for the family, for yourselves, is just such an important thing. I know this came as a complete shock. You know, 61, let's be honest, is just not old enough, is it? And whenever there's a sudden loss, you can take the grieving process and multiply it by 100 because there's just nowhere to put it all. And I say that so you kind of get some grace. Give each other the time and space that you need to be able to get through this. You know, right when I first talked to Susan, we became Facebook friends because I wanted to see the reaction. And I was blown away by the support. I read all the comments, and just the show of support is really the best way to get everybody through a time like this. So when we go over later on for the reception, continue to tell Bob stories. I understand there's more than enough Bob stories to last for a good long time. There's a reading, a wise person once said, it's okay to miss it. It's okay to say his name often. It's okay to cry. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to breathe deeply. It's okay to smile when you think of him. It's okay to have days when you can function, and it's going to be okay to have days when you just can't. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be thankful. It's okay to remember. It's okay to hope. It's okay to be honest about how you're feeling. And the biggest thing to know is, with a community like this, is to know it's going to be okay. At some time, it's going to be okay. And I love that reading simply because it acknowledges the fact that we all handle grief differently. You know, the experts kind of say that there are these 5 stages of grief, giving us the idea that we're going to move through them and graduate. And that's just not the way grief works. It's messy. And for as many different people as in this room right now, there's probably that many different emotions being felt. And so you be you. You do this the way you need to. I'm a big reader, and one of my favorite authors is a guy named Frederick Bachman. And I was reading one of his books the other night, and this paragraph kind of popped out the page, so I got up and typed it out because I thought it fit so well. He said, over time, I've realized that deep down, almost everyone asks themselves the same sort of questions about life, especially as we get a little older. We start to ask ourselves, am I good? Have I made anyone proud? Was I useful to society? Am I good at my job? Am I considered generous and considerate? Does anyone want me to be their friend? Have I been a good parent? Am I a good person? And ultimately, we ask ourselves the big question, does my life even matter? And you guys are showing today, by showing up in such a strong number, Bob's life mattered, did it? And it sounds to me like he could go down that list and check yes, 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 and yes to every one of those questions. You know, I'm a big believer in something that I call holy collisions. And what I mean by that is if you think back over the course of our lives, there are a few times when we are lucky enough to run into the exact right person at the exact right time of our lives for the exact right reason that we were supposed to run into that person. That to me is a holy collision. You might be sitting next to one of your holy collisions right now. And you think back to that first moment you met, you know, who said hello first? What was it you saw in each other that pushed through all the layers of friendship and acquaintance to become the significant relationship it is now? And there's no doubt that you decided to come here today because somewhere along the line, you've had a holy collision with Bob, Susan, family. And it sounds to me like everybody that Bob ran across, it was a holy collision or a collision of some kind, for sure. But you guys are the pages and chapters of his story. And whenever I have the privilege to do a service like this, I consider this group sitting in this room right now, we're our own version of a holy collision. You cannot explain why this specific group of human beings are in the same place at the same time. And yet here we are. And let's be honest, when we parked our cars here a few minutes ago, we all have things we're worried about. We have decisions we're trying to make. There might be something going on in your life that no one else in this room is aware of right now. And all that stuff's going to be waiting for us when we go back to our own lives. So my hope, and frankly my prayer, is that by the time we go rejoin our lives, we're going to be carrying some of his spirit with us. And that's the way that you celebrate someone's life. We can learn from Bob's story today. We can be inspired by it. And that's our hope as we come together to celebrate. So before I go any further, if you're comfortable joining me, I'd like to ask you if you would to join me in a word of prayer. Okay? Let's pray. God, I thank you for this exact group of friends and family that have come together, this holy collision of community that have come together today to support the family, to try to gain some understanding ourselves. And I have a belief, and I don't know how you do it, but I believe that you can look down on a room like this, and somehow you know what's going on in every life in this room. So part of my prayer today is that you could look down, and we might be able to hear something, think something, feel something, remember something that we could put to place in our own lives when we go back, because every one of us have people that are watching how we do life. How we handle good times and hard times and all the stuff in between. So God, I pray that Bob's spirit, the things he believed in, the energy that he brought into every room he walked into, will lead with us today. It's in your name I pray these things. Amen. You know, as we said, his story has only been 61 years, but it sounds like he did a lot of living in that time. I got to hear about the first big chapter of his life with Carla. And one thing that I appreciate that Susan told me is that throughout their life, that remained the relationship that was important to him. And then I got to hear, I said, how did you two meet? And she said, Alterfest.
The holy collision.
The holy collision. And, Alterfest is good for a lot of things. And that was, back before dating apps. So they swiped right somehow at Alterfest. And that has led to 14, what Susan said is just 14 incredible years together. Well, I'm going to get out of the way for the next couple of minutes. Margie's going to come up first and share some thoughts on a letter that she has. And then after that, Barry, I'm going to ask that you would come up right after Margie's done. Okay?
Amen.
I'm Margie.
I kind of screwed up a little bit, forgot a song, and so we're going to play that song now, if that's okay. And before Margie gets on, so thank you for your patience.
He asked me to play this at his funeral, like one of the first times I met him. I'm like,
Well,
Oh, actually, one of us played at his funeral.
You want to come say that?
no, that's okay. Close enough.
Susan said that Bob wanted this to be played at his funeral. So we're gonna honor that request. Erica?
So this song is for Crosby's friends before they knew they could run themselves. could be a rambler from the southern dial. I don't pay taxes or fire. I don't do business that don't make me smile. I love my aeroplane cause she got style. I'm a treetop flyer. And I'll fly with your Pokemon, anything but guns. The bush league pilots that you can't get the job done. You got to fly down into the canyons. You don't never see the sun. Ain't no such thing as an easy run. We're a treetop fly. And I fly low. I'm in high demand. I run 50 feet over the Rio Grande. And I blow the mesquite right up above the sand. I'm seldom seen, especially when I land. I'm a treetop fly. And people been asking me where to learn to fly that way. It's over in Vietnam, chasing NBA. Judgment taught me, and they taught me right. Stay down under the tree line. You might be alright. The treetop fly. So I'm coming home, I'm running low and fast. I promised my woman this is gonna be my last. I get the ship down and I make her fast. And someone will walk up to me and say, hey son, I wanna make some fast. Treetop flag. Well, there's things I am, and there's things I'm not. I'm a smuggler, and I could get shot, but I ain't going to die. Ain't going to get caught. You see, I'm a fool in an aeroplane. I'm just too hot. I'm a treetop fly. Well, yeah, I'm a treetop fly. I'm a treetop fly.
Can you hear me okay? Speaking of, my name's Margie, I'm sorry, I'm a funeral director here outside, and I've known a lot of you for many, many years. Picking up where Brian talked about holy collisions, just a little personal note, about 26 years ago, right, Tommy?
Yep.
I ran into Tommy at a funeral service, and he said, "Hey, Ben, what are you doing these days?" And I said, "Oh, I've been doing nonprofit work, but I'm kind of looking for a change." And he said, "Well, why don't you come work for me?" And I'm like, you're out of your mind. Like, why would I want to go into funeral service? But it was one of those things that I think God does truly have a plan for you in your life. So here I am, 26, I think it is, years later. And I think God put me here so I could be here for people like Susan and the Silveries and the Lashanskis last night and all the families that are hurting and need someone that just gets it. And so I'm just happy to be able to here to help you. I'm happy to have all of you here because I know that you're all here for a reason and we're all brought together again for a holy collusion. And collision, you always catch me on that one. So what I want to do though is there's a friend of Bob and Susan's who's not here, but honestly, he's watching on our YouTube channel. His name's Tim Kreitzer. He is the person that provided that beautiful crystal framed picture of Susan and Bob. And so he sent some special words about grief because he's unfortunately not able again to be here from Georgia. And I promised that I would read these to you today. Okay? Grief. Feeling this. Since we received the news that God needed Bob by his side, we felt it. Tomorrow, I pray that we all feel it a little bit less. Grief is the price we are honored to pay when we have been blessed to spend time and love someone, and they are no longer physically present in our lives. Grief's greatest foe is remembering the reason it exists in the first place. It exists because we were and we are blessed to love. And love is unending, and grief is but temporary. Grief, permanent, and it's natural to have our confrontation. Please know this. Whenever in its presence, remember your love, your laughter, your memories, your many blessings to have time on this earth together, and again, your love. This will wear down grief. And in time will step away because all of those will leave little or no room for it. This is from Tim himself. I love Bob. I love his smile, his hug, his spirit, his kindness, and how he loved others. These loves are eternal. These loves will fill my heart until there isn't any room left for anything else. Love will always win. I send my prayers to each and every one of you that you all may find your way to replace your feelings of grief over time. And I know you will because love will always win. Thank you.
Barry? My name is Barry Manns, longtime friend of Robert, the Silverii family. Served as his counsel. I was a customer of Bob's, and I was an honorary family member, sometimes as brother, and on one occasion, by reason of certain very peculiar circumstances, as Bob's father. Now, I'm a little bit reluctant to go through with all of the words that I have prepared because some of them might be more appropriate to hear at this subsequent event because they're not really relevant. They're relevant, but they're not really reverent, excuse me. So I'm going to try to edit these remarks and leave the best part of that out, and maybe I'll get a chance later on. Unless someone approves that I go ahead and say something that might be
You be as irreverent as you want.
Is everybody okay with that? All right. First of all, to the Silverii family and all of its extensions, I express my sincere condolences for the loss of this man of strength, resolve, humor, and in my personal experience, kindness, reliability, loyalty, thoughtfulness, and heart, and especially heart. He needed that to accommodate that big heart. As I returned to Bob, which I saw online immediately following his passing, keenly aware of that special gift that Bob had to make every friend know that they were special to him. And I'm especially honored by the opportunity to reflect on life experiences that I had with Bob and the virtues that they reveal, and I hope to do him justice. I've had the great good fortune to have been a part of a number of aspects of Bob's life, as I said, including as customer, counsel, friend, and family, honorary brother, etc. I first came to know Bob by reason of my professional relationship with the family building business, where I also came to know Thomas and Joe, not as much, and Willie to a certain extent as well, and Charles, of course. And I have been blessed by that family relationship for all of these years that started in about 1977. As a result of Bob's own business ventures, I came to know his integrity, his reliability, loyalty, and perseverance. I knew that he could be counted on to do what he said he would do. It's always been true in my life experiences. As a friend, I learned of Bob's perpetual willingness to do favors when asked and to go above and beyond. He really instilled in me a reciprocal willingness to perform tasks when asked without seeking compensation. Bob was generous with his time and his talent and his treasure. And he wasn't a particularly materialistic man. He was generous. Examples of generosity with respect to my entire family are, there's a multitude of them, but I'm just going to give you a few examples. I was going to make this sort of an interaction presentation with a request for you all to respond when I present a question. Initially, I have 4 daughters and 1 son. So a daughter comes to me and says, "Gee, Dad, I'd love to have a limousine sometime for a special event." So what did I do? Who said that? Get ready. Get ready. Okay. Call Bob. Bob had the limousine. Bob had the driver. The price was hard to beat. And she loved it, and so did her friends. Similarly, I had an estate case where I had a property that was being prepared for sale. Bob, as you know, was in the business of landscape to a certain extent, indeed in cutting and everything. I talked to him about it. It was out of county. The property was in disarray in terms of the landscaping. Bob said, "I'll do it." Oh, I forgot. What did I do? Called Bob. Bob took his tools, his crew, and his equipment, and he went out of county, and he did this magnificent job on this house. It was just beautiful, beautiful, implemented and executed landscape design. And the house sold immediately. And again, the price was hard to beat. Why did he did get paid? Next, we had a daughter who lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. She had gone to school there and stayed there for a while, and eventually she decided to come back. And that began, that trip back began the foundation for a relationship which led to her marriage, and Bob was a part of it. But what did I do? Called Bob. So we took a truck, went down, he went down, I was sick, he went down, Susan went down. They got a giant U-Haul, packed the daughter up and brought her back to Ohio. Even though it was in the middle of a severe winter storm. John, you remember that?
Yeah.
And Bob got sick while he was on the trip, yet he persevered and he brought her all the way home. Safely. In these cases, the effort and determination reflected by Bob were always way above what was compensation for the effort. You look at this picture, I love it, because this picture manifests those things that really come to mind when I think of Bob. Strength, power, charm. He was a charming man. And class. Truly classy people, in my experience, are very difficult to come by because my definition of class is quiet confidence. And Bob was quiet and confident. As I said, never touting his talents, never blowing his horn about his own accomplishments. It was a humility that I found very admirable. So here we are celebrating a man whose legacy has been briefly interrupted. I say briefly interrupted because we are all vessels. And I believe that when a loved one passes, we should not look at it as an occasion to say, what will I do without him? But as an opportunity to incorporate it into our daily existence, the virtues that that person lived. Carry those forward. Bob was big on those. That way, he's always with you in your heart, and his light is always available to the world by your expression of the virtues that he lived. So think of Bob in quiet moments and smile often. Be resolute, lend a hand, do a favor, lift someone up. Be truthful. I never felt discouraged after time with Bob, ever. But now, this is the turn. Finally, you may recall that I said in the beginning of this presentation that I was a father to Bob. And of course, there's a story to this. And for this, I refer to Dave Barry, who would say, I am not making this up. The story begins in a neighborhood in Kettering, Ohio, where I live, when a meat selling truck appears and they are presenting packaged meats of varieties for a price. And they sell them from a refrigerated truck, no problem, right? My wife is a magician with grillable meats, and I thought she would be surprised and excited to see what I had done. No, not so. She said, no, I think you better return that product, and gently prodded me to do so. So what did I do? Yes! I had investigated the company and found that they were subject to numerous complaints from consumers about their practices. So Bob and I told Bob, I said, if you will accompany me on this venture, I will buy breakfast if we get our money back. So Bob and I traveled to Fairfield, Ohio, where this company was located. And upon persistent knocking at the front door, we were eventually given admission to their offices. I was immediately confronted by the manager, one of the managers, and I began to regale her on the law of Ohio about consumer sales practices and how they were in violation of almost all of them. She insisted that she couldn't give me my money back on that day. Bob stood silently behind me, a very intimidating presence. The lady, in an exasperated manner, decided that maybe she could appeal to him. And so she said, you know, I cannot give you your money back today. Your son understands that, don't you? And she looked at Bob. And Bob just stood silently. They eventually relented and gave us our money. I bought breakfast, but as I recall, Bob ordered raisin toast and water so I would be able to retain most of the refund. So that's been my experience. I would tell you one other thing, that when our children, we have 4 daughters and a son, and when they became of an appropriate age, and my wife and I would go out of town for the weekend, perhaps, I would get ready to go out the door and I would look at them and I would say, I have serious friends and they will be watching this house. Years later, when my firstborn daughter was with me, we were out having a drink. Charles, Thomas, and Bob, various items were being discussed, and Bob offered to do certain things for me. And as we concluded our session and began to leave, my daughter, unprompted, looked at me and said, Dad, they really are serious. And I said, Don't you forget it. So, by telling these last two stories about the meet and this whole thing about him watching over, what I mean to bring to the floor is what is evident, that on top of everything else, Bob was a guardian. I believe he remains one, only now he has wings. Thanks, Bob. Please. Thank you.
Well, I know why the family wanted you to speak, Barry. That was incredible. Felt like I was reading a John Grisham book there for a little while. I was personally rooting for some more irreverence, so if you have more. But thank you.
We'll talk.
When I talked to Susan, I said, "Can you describe him?" And the very first thing she said was, the day that I met Bob, right when we met, one of the first things I said to him was, "I can feel your good heart," and we just heard that. I imagine a lot of you have those kind of stories. On the route song page below the obituary, there's a place for people to write comments, and Richard Brown, you may be here, I don't know, but he said, "My friend for over 40 years, one of the famous door dog bouncers. Never met anyone I would rather cover my back than Bob. He was truly a man's man, what little boys want to grow up and become. I know this. Bob is not really gone. He's just gone on before. I will see my friend again further along." And I thought of all the comments I read, that kind of summed up what I just saw repeated over and over and over again as I got to understand this man that I didn't have the privilege to meet. In fact, everything about him that I heard I liked, except the fact I don't know how he became a Steeler fan. And I did ask Susan that, because everything else seemed to line up. OSU, the Reds, and I guess all your dad played with Chuck Noll in college, who was a great coach of the Steelers. So we'll forgive that one that one thing. But as I got to hear so many stories about him, if we just all heard what Barry said, there's just so many things that popped out. And the one thing I said to Susan and Charlie, if there were any life lessons that his life taught, just as you kind of watched how he did it, what'd you learn? They said, Bob made it a priority to spend time with people who mattered. And you all mattered to him. Hope you'll forgive me, but I'm going to tell a story about the Bengals. About a year and a half ago, I have 3 sons, and I was with my middle son. It was a Monday night, January 2nd, 2023, and that Monday night, the Bengals were getting ready to play the Bills. And whether you're a Steelers fan or any fan, it was a big game. And if you know anything about that night, whether you're a sports fan or not, you know about that night, because all of that came to a screeching halt the moment that young Damar Hamlin hit the turf. Other than watching everything surrounding 9/11, I don't think I ever remembered watching anything more surreal than what happened on television for the next hour. These broadcasters didn't know what to tell us. 60,000 fans were quiet. These young athletes, literally in the prime of their life, were pacing, crying. Because when trauma happens, like you guys have experienced, there's just nowhere to put it. It just has a way of punching us in the gut. And in the next couple of days, I don't think I ever remember hearing so much open talk about prayer and miracles. And if you remember the story, they got their answer because on Wednesday, Damar Hamlin woke up. He couldn't talk because he still had a lot of tubes in his throat, but he could write. And so they gave him a little whiteboard, and reportedly the first thing that he wrote down was, "Did we win the game?" And in a moment of profound wisdom, the doctor dealing with Damar Hamlin said, "You did. You win, Damar. We didn't even finish the other game." I have every belief, because Susan and Charlie and I talked also about what Bob believed in. And he believed that this life is only chapter 1. And I say this because I 1000% believe it, that at the moment he took his last breath, unfortunately, I believe Jesus Christ looked him in the eye and said, well done. Well done. You win. I mean, what one of us in this room wouldn't love to have the feeling and the energy that this man has? Now, I know this doesn't feel like a win at all to you guys. This is a loss. You know, I used to think that when we got to heaven, there would be this really long line, and the thing that we would hear over and over and over again at the front of that line would be, why? Why? Why didn't you? Why couldn't you? Why didn't we get our answer? Why? I used to think that. I don't anymore. Because I'm pretty sure that at the beginning of that line, what we're going to hear more than anything else is not why. We're going to hear, oh, wow. And if you share that belief at any level, and on a day like today, you don't have to say goodbye to Bob, your friend, your husband, your brother. You can simply say, and mean it, Bob, we'll see you later. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we get to see you later. I want to close with a reading that I hope brings honor to the way that Bob lived his life. It's a reading of from a group called Fearless Soul. It's a spoken word, and it says this, because as I said, we're all going to go get it into our cars later. We're going to go back to our busy lives. So here's some questions that each one of us can roll around. It says, if I were to die today, would I be proud of the life that I've lived? If I die tomorrow, was I happy? Would I be proud of the person that I've become? Was there love in my life? Have I given enough love? Have I shown those I love the real me? Could I have done things better or differently? Will anyone miss me? What will I leave behind? Will anyone on earth be better because I was there? Because the truth is, not one of us sitting in this room right now knows for sure that we're going to wake up tomorrow. We did not walk into this room with that guarantee. So if you don't like who you've been up to this moment, make a change and make it today. If you have a broken relationship with somebody you really care about, fix it today. If you can give more love, give it now. If you can play more and work less, decide and commit to do that today. If you can do anything to improve the quality of your life, make that commitment today in Bob's honor. Write down every change that you can make, everything that cannot wait until tomorrow. You need to make a phone call to somebody, make it this afternoon. You need to apologize, apologize. You need to give somebody a hug, hug them. Everything you need to say. Decide to stop caring so much about how the other person might or might not react that we get up every single day, as Bob did, and try as hard as we can to be the best version of ourselves on that particular day. When we're our true self, when we're present, when we're living in the moment. So get excited about your life. Love your life while you're still living it. All of our new lives start right now. And the best thing you all can do to celebrate this man's life is to take his spirit out of this room with us. I know that his faith was big to him, and used to go to Mass a lot. And what I'd like to do, and if you would like to join me, you're welcome to. I'd like to close with the Our Father prayer. And then before we dismiss, we're going to hear one more song, okay? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Okay. Well, I know I'm a better person because of that, Bob. How about you guys? Yeah. We have one last song, but before we do that, we want to make sure you're all invited over to the post and immediately following this. And please try to stay there with that. Erica, let's go play the song, and I'm going to dismiss from 3 or 4.
In whom I trust, and He will raise you up on eagle's wings. There you are, the red dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and cause you the spirit of power will never capture you, and famine will bring you no peace. Under His wings, your refuge, His faithfulness, your shield. He will raise you up on eagle's wings. There you are, the breath of dawn. Make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of His hand. And for to His angels He's given a command to guard you in all of your ways. Above their heads they will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against the stone. Raise you up on eagle's wings. There you are, the breath of dawn. Make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of His hand. And hold
Okay. You're welcome. Take care. Take care. You take over.
Are you?
Yeah, great job. Yeah.
So sorry. Thank you for your help.
There, did you have a drink too?
Very powerful. How's it just been a lifelong family friend? Okay. Gotcha.
On the good.
Well, I'm just so sorry. You're not supposed to say goodbye to a brother.
No, that's for sure.
Sounds like you got a pretty big group coming over.
Everybody thinks so.
I would imagine. This is a
Are
great.
you gonna come over?
Yeah.
Great.
So the other.
That's the mom. That's when they're 5. Nobody ever, never did anything.
Oh, okay.
And Joe, in the police, he lived up there, so he flew back up Monday and brought me.
Oh, he had a- okay.
And I said, well, this is the time, we're gonna do something now.
Good. That's a nice touch.
That's,
Take those over to the other place.
I don't think we're gonna, no, I don't think we're gonna do something at Calvary tomorrow. So, yeah.
So they left everything else. So, I mean, I hated mostly everything when I started.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.